This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter, and welcome you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, June 22nd, 1983, I couldn't find anything else much more worthy for some reason. But anyway, the NHL decided to do one of the most time-honored traditions and make a rule change. However, this rule change, I guess in the American media, was basically put to the sword and not given a lot of press. Probably not in Canada either, as referenced by the picture you see above. But anyway, the NHL decided to do something that it's been neglecting for 4 decades. Not that, basically to put overtime back in the NHL in the regular season. You would be thinking, wait a tick, the NHL didn't have regular season overtime for 4 decades? How? And why? Well, the answer is simple. Basically, by the time World War II basically caused a lot of problems. There was wartime travel restrictions due to, materials that could be used to help in the war to destroy the axis of evil. Italy, Germany, and I would have said Russia, but I'm wrong. Italy, Germany, and Japan. Should have blown up Russia when we did. But anyhow, so basically to make the restrictions, the NHL decided to have it that you play the regular season, and if you end in regulation, you end in regulation and you get on the train and get going. The only issue was that, NHL in overtime actually at times would be a 10-minute overtime. Whoever scored the most goals wins. And if both teams scored a goal or the same amount of goals, or basically not score any goals, then basically the game would be a tie. Strange. But yeah, that has happened. So anyway, because of the wartime restrictions, basically overtime was the season put on the shelf. Basically, game is tied after regulation. You're on your way. Now the funny thing is, despite the wartime boom and basically things getting better by the '60s in sense, the NHL never put the regular season overtime back in. It was supposed to be like a few years, but now a few years stretched on and on and on. And you got to look at the fact that there were some very superstar teams, like the 1971 Boston Bruins and the 1977 Montreal Canadiens. Of course, the 76-77 Habs had 132 points, 60 wins and 12 ties, with 8 losses in an 80-game season. How many of those 12 ties could have been wins or losses in a sense? But, I mean, when you look at it, it's like, how many of those ties could have been wins for the Habs? They could have won maybe 3 or 4 games in overtime, and then they would have basically been the all-time leader in wins in a season and all that. But yeah, that was weird how even in the 70s they didn't do the regular season overtime. But I think the NHL finally decided to do regular season overtime in '84. Their rule would be 5 minutes of overtime. If you don't score, no one scores, then the game's a tie. Someone scores, overtime heroics, to say the least. Overtime had changed by 1999-2000. It became 4-on-4, and teams got the loser point. You lose in overtime, you get a point. That's kind of pathetic. You lose in overtime, and you get the same amount of points as if, there was a tie after the 5-minute overtime. Just unbelievable, unforgivable. By 2005, the NHL rectified that and basically eliminated the overtime loss thing in its column and all that. So basically, it was wins, losses, and overtime/shootout losses. No, they kept that point, sorry. But they basically made it a shootout. So they eliminated the tie and put it into a shootout. So basically, if the game is tied after overtime, we go to a shootout. 3-on-3 instead of the 5-on-5 that international tournaments usually do. So basically, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, but, people forget that for 4 decades, the NHL didn't have overtime in the regular season. It was puzzling. So anyway, yeah, that's all I've got for this topic. I know it's a small topic, but basically it's got to be something to talk about. I mean, people need to be educated on the fact that NHL didn't always have regular season overtimes. And for 4 decades, they didn't have anything like that. So people need to know, like it or not. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do